What do you think somatic practice is, and what do you think that it can add in your own, for example, development and learning? We talked about it with Terry a bit, but maybe you have your own opinions around that.
For me, the defining thing for somatic work is just that space of coming from yourself. Like today we were kind of given the space where you do what feels right for you within your own parameters, so you have this control over it and this ownership. So it's your personal journey, it's everything you get from it is yours, and it's not going to be the same as other people, while with other classes you're expected to get certain things. So this is I don't know, it just gives ownership to you at an earlier stage in an academy would be my main thing, and this space for exploration.
I think that definitely somatic practice is very much about doing maybe even very clear actions, like in the Feldenkrais, as she also explained. It is set a set repertoire of functions of movement, but still how you do it and if you even do it is very much up to you, and what the effect is also, and how you digest this information is very much up to you. So all this is kind of inside this fluent change within yourself, while even the yoga, which could be quite close to somatic practice, is, I think, still much more having a vocabulary that is more the yoga than just your own thing and results, action and results. Even if the movement in the Feldenkrais is given to you, like you put this leg there and you go to the right or you go to the left, you twist, you turn your head, I think it's still more according to what your body is and what your own posture and anatomy is. And then the yoga, which is then still more not a form, but of of a discipline that is more defined for itself than just for the individual, I think.
I think in general, I never really considered to include somatic work into my skills, like to develop it personally. Like, and I'm talking about Feldenkrais and Alexander technique. But today I was quite surprised to learn that people who teach Alexander technique and Feldenkrais, that they also practice on their own. And in this way, it does interest me to develop these skills to not train myself, but to take care of my own body through knowledge of Alexander or Feldenkrais.
Yes.
Like, I don't think, me personally, I have the ambition right now to help other people or to teach people, but I really like the fact that it's also, you can do it on your own. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be a social happening and a teaching, and so, yeah.
For me, personally, I think define somatic practice as somehow problem solving in body, and this is actually also something you for sure do in ballet or other classes, other more technical classes. But in somatic practice, it's more like you take really the time to stand still for this. And I think this for sure I will do, and I will need to do more and more in my future career if I get older, if my body is getting a bit weaker, that it becomes more of importance, that you take time to feel where you can compensate, or where you can move more healthy with your body. So in that sense, yes.
Well, yeah, the thing that comes to my mind also is that I don't have the ambition to become a teacher, but I do think that this is a very practical and good side branch to take as a freelancer or as a dancer, once in a while or maybe later on. And I gave a workshop last year, and I think because I was working with amateurs, one thing that was very a strong impression for me while teaching was to see their bodies, which were, it was like youngsters, and there was a lot of distortion in my eyes, like the posture or the knees very much turned in and things like this, where it was blocking me somehow to teach the dance movement to them, while I saw that already in normal walking they are so insecure, so much not grounded, or so shifted and all those things. And I was afraid of teaching, I don't know, roles to them, because I was afraid that it's painful, or I don't know. So I do think that having experience from somatic practice, because I think somatic practice is just about the experience. From the experience you learn and you integrate it into your own body, you can give hints to other people of how to do the movement more healthy for themselves, and also a lot through touch. Like also when you manipulate other people, that you know very well which bone to take into your hand, how to move the joint, and where the muscle attaches. Like I think through the experience of somatic practice, I get a lot of awareness that I can transfer on others. Not to say that they are the same, but to have a sensibility for what is their body and how can a little hint make them more healthy, moving more healthy and more efficient, and also to take information more easily for them.
To wrap that up, or to get the core out of that, by getting to know and understand your own body, you can also help others with their bodies by experiencing it in classes or in workshops or whatever. Yeah? You want to add something?
Yeah, not so much. Like you kind of said everything there. I just would totally agree, because like what I said earlier about this whole thing of when I taught and I had this experience of just helping someone even just on the emotional level, like it was helping someone go through what I went through myself is really interesting. But the more thing I wanted to say was, it's just been on my mind since the start of the conversation, when you mentioned you were in a school that was quite somatic orientated, and you said that it's important for the school to keep around this kind of more dancey feel. When I really feel sometimes while I'm locked in a very academic dancey course, there's so many days where I really feel like I'm not dancing, because it becomes so much about you have to fit the mold, you have to do these things. But I guess it's a balance thing. Even too much freedom like somatics is like, well, where's the movement? So that was just something I wanted to come back to.
Terry also said in the interview that we need judgment, right? But within the Feldenkrais, we need to let it go. How do you think about when it's good to have judgment within yourself or from your expert teachers or in specific roles, and when it isn't?
Well, I will try to make it very short, but my first impulse on that is that I think judgment is, I do feel that judgment is very productive with myself when I judge myself during the work, when I can distinguish clearly I'm following what I'm my intention, or I'm next to it. Like, I don't know, if I would go to the studio and I improvise and I put myself a task to judge, do I really go for the task or do I not go for it? And even if I realize I don't go for it, to then judge, is it still valuable, or do I just do anything? Like in French, this n'importe quoi, this whatever. And I think not to judge like bad or good or stupid or or amazing, but more in the sense of, is it like, do I find this interesting? Is it triggering me? Is it getting me somewhere? Like, to still not just say I can do whatever and everything is great, but to still distinguish of productivity or interesting, or, you know, like something that goes somewhere or something that is just stuck.
It's there's also different ways of judging things, like when, for example, in case it's another person that you're judging and there's something you're disagreeing with, in order to change them, it's always better to say it in a positive way. So to be constructive and not destructive. And I think it's the same with yourself. If you're judging yourself, you can judge yourself in a constructive way, but if you're judging yourself in a destructive way, then you cannot progress. So judgment, it's always there and it's present, but there are different forms, and also the quality can be very different of judgment.
Like the meaning of judgment can be interesting as well, because I think a lot of us tend to take judgment as a like being condemned to something, like it's like the heaviest form of the word, like a judge in a courtroom judges something and it becomes very right or wrong. But yeah, judgment is just kind of a directed opinion in something. And yeah, I like what you said about just kind of if it's interesting and if it's productive, because I definitely feel like when I'm in class, sometimes I can have a specific task or goal at hand, or when I'm working myself, and then you get judged on something that is totally not what you're working about, and it becomes this confusion or this attention grabbing thing.
Also, in the interview with Terry, came up the learning, the capability to learn, and she said a lot about that. Actually, she came back to it all the time. So I have an open question to you: do you know from yourself how do you like to be addressed in learning? How do you like to learn? What do you have? Do you have a preference? What challenge do you like?
I don't know. I think the most constructive way of learning is to as a teacher to give a lot, but also to give a lot of freedom to explore, to like. And this is, I think, what I feel is how somatic practice works. Also, that everything works through constructivism. I think it's a thing. You know, like it's okay. That's yeah. That it's your personal adventure, your personal research of. Like the teacher is giving you something, but you need to find out what is, like the teacher is asking you a question like, what do you feel? And then it starts to like trigger your mind and you start to play with things. You do the movement again and you see like, oh, if I do this, it hurts less, or if I do that, it feels a lot different to my whole body. So I think this in every technique class is the most efficient way to learn. Yeah, to learn. I think a good balance between this. With somatic work, it's not like for sure you're not working towards an aesthetic or like in ballet. This is a big contrast, but in ballet you're really working for this one leg that is turned out and it's there. And in somatic, like I still don't know a lot about somatic, but I think the goal is always free. I think every day you can achieve something else.
One thing I've been like trying to figure out recently is like my healthiest way of learning, and what I enjoy is being set a task, being a space to explore, and then I can define something. And I think with the somatics thing, you don't have to define anything. It's just task and explore, and yeah.
Doesn't ask for a result.
Yeah.
They don't ask for an answer also.
Yes, this is when I'm with the goal a bit.
Yeah, this is, yeah, it kind of makes sense to me, because like I know in school a lot of things is just like in my experience, that exploration space can be very small or not there at all really all the time. Like sometimes some classes are very task and define. Here's a tendu, like use your turn out, blah blah blah, and it's, yeah, it becomes very less personal. And yeah, for the question of how I would like to learn, I would always want that exploration space is probably the most important, and that's why somatics and like all types of class still have this learning curve. It just depends on if this exploration space becomes important or not.